Welcome to yet another episode of the Crypto Spendthrift Podcast. Starting right off, Indonesia will officially ban Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So this country has banned Bitcoins in totality. Indonesian citizens will not even be able to convert their Bitcoin back into Aruba soon. But funny enough, they have banned it to preserve their currency Rupa. So Indonesia is not really a massive Bitcoin community, so it's kind of odd that the country is banning it out of nowhere. It seems like a preventive measure for no reason, because no one there is really using it compared to a lot of other countries surrounding it, especially to the far north. How Japan is a massive part of the crypto community, yet they are super permissive about Bitcoin. But it'll be interesting to see how this kind of backfires for them in the future. Aruba looks toward Ethereum to boost tourism. So tiny old Aruba is using blockchain to eliminate middlemen for traveler supply. This small area makes it perfect for this kind of blockchain testing. And Winding Tree, which is also tasked for the Lufthansa blockchain air travel revamp that they're doing there, is doing this Aruba tourism thing also. So it'll be interesting how that plays out. Seems like it would work pretty well, honestly, just because blockchain is one of the better things to eliminate middlemen. We'll just see if Wine Tree's up for the task of handling two big projects at once. Next up, the Bank of Canada may issue a national digital currency soon. So this is entirely open to change, but the National Bank of Canada is exploring the options to possibly issue a country coin to complement the Canadian currency on its move to a more cashless society. So it will be interesting to see how more countries respond to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and such. Will they create their own currencies, or will they adopt the already established ones? I find that highly unlikely, considering any coin can pop up and survive as long as it has sufficient backing. So I definitely expect countries to launch their own currencies, maybe based off codes of already established coins, but not entirely off already established coins. Speaking of established coins, Ethereum. Buterin is in Bloomberg's 50 most influential for 2017. He's got this spot for helping blockchain startups raise more than $3 billion this year, since basically every ICO uses the Ethereum platform to base its entire code off of. They use the standard that Ethereum pioneered mostly. Sometimes you hear some that are trying to do their own thing or kind of Bitcoin derivatives, but mainly it's Ethereum based tokens that are the ICO winners. So he also got this because, as you would know, majority of crypto transactions are on Ethereum's blockchain and not Bitcoin's. So this is also a factor, since majority of the community transactions are done on Ethereum. Next up, Venezuela is looking toward their own cryptocurrency, the Petro, backed by oil. So for sure you've been hearing that Venezuela is creating its own sovereign digital cryptocurrency, and this is basically because they're they're really feeling the political pressure from Western powers. So this has led them to establish a workaround. We all know that North Korea is already utilizing bitcoins to avoid their sanction. It'll be interesting to see if Bitcoin allows this Petro to be traded openly and possibly even circumvent any kind of sanctions that countries put on them if this coin shows up on a decentralized exchange. The only risk for users would be if they're using Bitcoin, they might have a case against them for trading on that decentralized exchange and later kind of claiming the Petro, but that'll be pretty hard to kind of chain analyze those two things together. But if someone were to use Monero and sent to a decentralized exchange, their activity is pretty much covered. And we'll be talking more about Monero in a bit. So, next up is NASDAQ. Moscow Stock Exchange is planning to introduce Bitcoin futures. So, Bitcoin is a pretty rocky relationship with Russia, and it's basically banned for all things considered in a way. So, depending on if the law changed, they are looking toward also launching futures. This is mainly due to the pressures of the US, EU, and Japanese organizations that are hungry for Bitcoin futures. And since Bitcoin futures are set to launch this month in the United States, the race toward establishing their own is going to, that window of opportunity of the money rush will be over in a couple months if this law doesn't really move. You could probably expect Russia to kind of take the Chinese approach and making it a delay for their crypto advocates in Russia, leading to them not really being able to reap the benefits of the future market, like the excitement of the futures market, as American, European, and Japanese citizens have the possibility of doing. SEC, the favorite topic, they have filed fraud charges against ICO organizers of Plexcoin. So Plex Corp has been taken down by the SEC for fraud, basically. And bear in mind, this is a Canadian company, not American. So the SEC has enough reach internationally to take down certain companies in certain countries. So any nation with a pretty tight relationship with America, any traditionally Western country or any country with strong relations, European countries, Australia, obviously Canada, don't expect to be able to like a legal shield unless you're probably in Switzerland. The SEC will be able to bear charges probably in a complex way, because I believe the law is kind of, if Americans are able to contribute, then they have jurisdiction somehow, or if they have any kind of stake in the United States. So like, say they have an office or an employee, then the SEC can also have that jurisdiction to come in and do something. So I wouldn't say expect more of these big crackdowns, but expect crackdowns on fraudulent ICOs. speaking of legal matters, next up is Bitfinex. They have hired a law firm to challenge any critics that deflames them with, quote, false claims about the status of Bitfinex, basically. So this is mainly aimed at one particular person who goes by the name Bitfinex. So that's Bitfinex with apostrophe ED. And they have been making a lot of claims that Bitfinex has been operating unethically, printing tethers wantonly, wash trading, a whole list of bad things an exchange should not be doing. Earlier, Bitfinex has hired a PR firm to kind of handle their image and combat this user, but that has failed because they hired the worst possible PR firm, and now they're going after the legal route. However, this user was not at all distraught because they also claim that Bitfinex, there was a lot of fraudulent legal claims, and one such claim failed in the last year. So they're not scared of any crazy legal matters getting thrown down at them. I'd be cautious using Bitfinex because just this whole situation on its own would be sketchy. Even if we didn't already have rumors of all the other things. So yeah, if you use Bitfinex, I'd be skeptical. Switch to Binance or something. Just look for other exchanges. Next up, James Howells considering digging up a landfill to find his lost Bitcoin, which is $85 million, give or take, that are sitting somewhere at the bottom of a garbage dump. This event happened years ago. I remember originally hearing about it, but I remember it said he looked for it when it was still like, I think it hit the original $1,000. But now he's really gunning for it now that it's over 1,000. I think it's a futile effort to try to find those Bitcoins that are definitely miles below ground probably and covered up on who knows what. Seems like a futile effort to find some very, very small hard drive in a literal pile of crap. It'll be interesting though, because one day this hard drive could easily be worth over $1 billion, and it will just be somewhere at the bottom of a garbage dump. It'll be like the modern buried treasure, pirate's treasure. Crazy. And next up, JPMorgan has changed their stance on Bitcoin. They think Bitcoin could become the new gold. Quite funny that because all these other big financial institutions are giving Bitcoin that social proof, JPMorgan has changed their tune and is now totally accepting Bitcoin and saying, that's cool, that's a good investment. We're gonna be on the side of Bitcoin now that all these other people have already thrown in their lot before us and all that good stuff. So funny how people change their tune once the money gets better and possible rivals come in. So speaking of people coming in to Bitcoin, major Japanese exchanges are looking to establish Bitcoin futures ASAP. The main obstacle here is current legislation doesn't really allow them to do this. However, they are looking to quickly change that and establish their own Bitcoin futures. So thank CME and CBOE for opening the floodgate. Next up, Monero. Been talking about Monero for a long time, and Monero's been doing really well recently. It'll be doing even more in the future because G-Eazy, Mariah Carey, and more are selling albums through Monero. So this Project Coral Reef is allowing users to get up to 15% reduction in items from musician stores who are in this program. It's a big win for Monero, a very legitimate use. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised about this. I expected Monero to be kind of locked in, being the perfect dark web coin, especially now that Zcash has been found to have big privacy implications of actually being possible to kind of deduce where the transactions are going and who's sending them. So I think this is a big win for Monero. Monero has one of the bigger potentials of things that are in their weight class. Like, compared to other coins in the market, similar market cap, I think Monero has the biggest potential. Next up, Bittrex has frozen withdrawals for thousands. So I covered this a bit, I think a month ago or so, that Bittrex is changing their policies, and they've been slowly over time, but when they do it in big phases where they just lock accounts. And so this next phase has a lot of people locked out of their funds because you have to be verified to even withdraw if you are under $500 of trading, I believe. And some people are locked out if their verification fails, and they have to use the enhanced verification. And if that also fails, then you have to get manually verified, which is impossible because they're not really processing these manual verifications that fast. So you could be waiting a very long time to even redeem your coins. Unfortunate, but what are you going to do? If you're trying to stay anonymous, move on or wait on for a decentralized exchange. Those are coming. If you're verified, just Bittrex is still decent to use. Even if this move is kind of sketchy in the way they didn't really forewarn anybody. But hey, at least them being really pro know your customer kind of protocols kind of legitimizes them in a way that maybe they have a less likely chance of running off with your money. But who knows? I wouldn't say Bittrex is anywhere near the same league as Bitfinex right now. But as if you're a pro anonymous person, I'd be highly skeptical of them for the rest of this. Next up is Lightning Network news. It's on its way. It's almost done. More testing is kind of going down. The previous tests have went well, and you can expect that soon, TM, Lightning will be available to scale Bitcoin. Because as we've been seeing with Ethereum, scaling is important, and once real use hits the network, it'll be clogged and impossible to do anything. And finally up, Nicehash hacked. Unfortunate. $62 million stolen in a hack. Details are pretty scarce about how it's happened, but it's under investigation. But don't expect to get those funds back. Those funds are most likely lost forever, honestly, unless the hacker's nice and returns them. They'll also advise you to change your password on other websites if you use the same one, which is really bad. Try not to use the same password in multiple places, because when this happens, you have to change everything. And that's the news for today. As you can see, Stellar has been increasing in price. Monero's been doing good. Hopefully we got some more picks in the next month or so that show the show the sensibility of guest and myself with the coins that we advocate. And as usual, like, share, do all that jazz. Rate it on whatever app you're using to listen, if it can be rated, especially if you're on iTunes. 100% hit me up with that 5-star review, and see you next week, next Monday. For those looking for more interview episodes, that will be happening next weekend. The next one will be posted. You'll learn more in either the Monday or more than likely the Thursday episode about what you can expect. So, see you next week.